cambiar vidas,
change lives,
change organizations,
change
दुनिया में
organizations,
बदलाव.
Change the world.
My name is Jung-Hoon and I'm from Korea, and I'm glad that I'm making a presentation here today as well. Since my sabbatical year last year, I came to Stanford and starting to do some research on the smart green city. Since I have also a very long experience, more than 5 years now, including the national R&D project for the smart city in Korea, as well as the smart city planning for the both cities in Seoul and Busan as well. So based on this experience, I came here and then sharing this idea with Margaret, and we actually starting to do some research on the more case studies oriented research on the how smart city is building up and what kind of elements that we can think about when we actually promoting the smart city as well. This just give you brief introduction here that we just counted and we are like 143 actually smart city project is actually ongoing or complete at the moment. This sources data from ABR research as well as Cisco and also IBM. Actually they are very varied. Cliff show us the very small scale of implementation to the master plan, like piecemeal approach against the comprehensive approach. There are a lot of cities are actually ongoing, and I think that we're surely saying that this is the kind of key paradigm at the moment, and also to create the urban kind of innovations as well. There are a lot of cities like San Jose is implementing the LED street lights against the Rio is actually preparing upcoming their World Cup for the preparation, and they're trying to change it into the more smart city. Arizona, Colorado, or Toronto is doing more in renewable energy side, as well as the education, health, and also building area. And also we are looking at Songdo, we've seen it as well. And also the master city in Abu Dhabi is actually currently trying to do the carbon zero city as well. So I actually had an opportunity to actually work with them as well. That they try to do the all zero carbon emissions as well. They are all demands to be smarter and also greener with a sustainable innovation model as well. Whether they're actually revitalizing old city into the new innovative city or developing new city, the ICT is becoming very, very important play in this paradigm. So based on these things, our research objective is to actually research looking at more framework, try to looking at the holistic view, because as Cliff mentioned, there are kind of piecemeal approach as well as there are comprehensive approaches, and we wanted to see that as a whole pictures rather than actually looking at just single project or scale. How actually cities are comprehensively moving toward to this kind of smart city approach at the moment, and also. So this is kind of more, we found a lot of studies are very fragmented and also very hard to generalize as well. So what we do, our objective is to develop the more conceptual framework, which can be actually talk about the smart city practice around the globe, and to analyzing with the different kind of continental, and then see how actually there is any common characteristics or differences. And rather than actually talking about planning or talking about future perspective, we try to see the snapshots of what's happening there at the moment. Actually, we are aiming to actually develop the more kind of maturity model for the smart city using the kind of index approach and try to identify the gaps or where the improvement is required as well. So based on our model was constructed based on this kind of architecture view, as shown, Cliff shows a similar approach with the vertical value-added services where the technology is evolving it, and there will be made with the application and delivered by some kind of delivery devices or buildings or other equipment, and that is apparently given to the more services to the users as well. This will be coordinated by the kind of governance model of a city and how they actually promoting, developing, or maintaining their services as well. So we are looking at more value-added smart or smart city services using the ICT based on the service-oriented thinking. And also there are interaction smart city infrastructures with the network structure and also the urban spaces. In Korea, we actually more interactive, thinking about the more interactive buildings or interactive digital media board. We are more trying to be integrated with the urban spaces as well. And that is actually kind of our approach in smart city. Smart city governance is also very critically important with the leadership and strategy process. How do they actually collaborate? How do they actually measure the performances? This is very critical as well. We collected this case data with how, the current smart city initiatives and also activities. And also our uniform analysis was that how each city has got different services. So we look at the services and apps and then also the infrastructures, that how this smart city is actually supporting. So this is our framework from the 6 perspectives so far that we developed it. And looking at from the urban openness, the service innovation, and also looking at the collaborative partnership, also intelligent and sustainability, and also looking at the infrastructures and integrations as well.
Excuse me, Jung-Hoon. Sorry, we're videotaping and
right. Okay. I have to stick here in the. I couldn't. Okay. So this is models that 6 different perspectives, and additionally, at the moment, we are looking at the urban innovativeness, how actually the ecosystem is actually making it. And also looking at how existing industries are benefiting at the moment. So it's a more kind of like valuation of what actually smart city is creating it as well. There are actually the collaborative partnerships currently actually under the research at the moment. Just giving based on this thing, we started to looking at the 3 cities. One obviously Seoul, and then another one is San Francisco, and then Amsterdam was actually looking as a one of the European cities to have a look at it. And they have a kind of populations with that information. And also, we found that there are a lot of rankings on the cities as well. So there are from China, and also the Innovation City Survey, those kind of rankings actually looking at things. But most of them are actually lagging kind of economic indicators rather than actually giving you what's happening and how actually promoting the smart city. Just giving you broadband access is also a very important factor. So 97.5% is actually penetration at the broadband access in Korea, as well as is quite active as well. So our first dimension is actually urban openness. Urban openness is basically engaging with how actually looking at the open government 2.0, that how actually public can participate in the services, and also actually looking at open data actually movement as well. So when you look at it here, we analyzing all the services around it. We see the most of dominant services was the unidirectional information services, which is just using the iPhone, just locating your positions, and that's it. Just kind of very simple transactions. But more and more, we see the more cities are actually looking at the participatory design, which means that actually citizens actually engage and play as a platform as well. So one other example is the kind of Improve SF in San Francisco. What they do is they're giving you challenges, and that gives you actually a community to problem or solving the problems together as well. And also there are C-click fix is the same thing that actually report to the non-emergency services, so that when you actually something to do with the civic issues, they take the photos or they actually put it on the web using these apps to actually inform the cities, and they will actually fix the problem and how they just can track how the problem has been fixed. So their kind of engagement platform is available as well. And also they are kind of in Seoul, there are kind of oasis, 천만상상 oasis. It means that actually they proposing the new ideas to cities. So basically based on these things and also looking at the social policies as well. One of Amsterdam is also innovating in a way, looking at the more extended other than the civic platform. They are looking at the more score-based, bottom meter. Amsterdam is actually providing when actually users are moving around, they can see the score of the based on their locations. and their whether the neighborhood is how the participation as well as the pollution and safety as well here. And also there are kind of an application for the storytelling and also user generation content. It's more and more citizens to engage with and collaborate working with the government as well. There are kind of this kind of engagement services are getting popular as well. And also that there are other services which is the more internal utility management or something to do with very simple services as well. So the dominant services are here as well. Open data platform is actually opening the data for the government to see that. US has been very active on this area. Looking at if you see the New York is, I mean, we didn't include here, but New York is like about 500. San Francisco 201, 10, 11, and Seoul or Amsterdam is currently actually following their steps to the open data platform. When you looking at by the category, that you can see that a lot of data has been dispersed in San Francisco, whereas actually Seoul is focused on some certain area like transportation or park recreations or art and cultures, same as Amsterdam as well. So saying that this open data movement is very, very encouraging and has got two purposes. One is actually looking at the government transparency, and another one is actually creating the innovation. Like by opening the data, the developer can actually create a lot of apps as well. So they are actually very active in San Francisco as well. But there are, despite this movement, in terms of service diversity, actually more service diversity was founded in Seoul rather than San Francisco. And also within this kind of category, that there are more kind of diversity when you're actually making into the services. San Francisco opened up quite a lot of data, but actually they haven't transformed into the more diverse apps at the moment compared to the other two cities as well. And this was kind of finding early finding we actually come out with. And there was kind of more explorations in Amsterdam and Seoul compared to the more likely SF was a focus on the more transportations or prevent crime or disaster. This is because maybe SMC Seoul was actually more focusing in exploration approach to actually creating the new services by the government rather than through the private sector. And so as Amsterdam is actually using quite well with the open data platform to create the more apps as well. We found that service integration is also very important. Integration means that actually there are kind of combination of different services. For example, like tour and transportations or something else. We look at most of the application here are single services, so that some of our service-oriented integration has been achieved in different area in terms of transportation or public administration or facility management. For example, like EcoMiles service in Seoul is very successful, saying that they connect with the banks and the power company to save. And you actually, when you do the kind of eco kind of activity, you can save the points and you can actually use as the same as the credit card points as well. And it's been very successful and has been adopted by widely in Seoul as well. iTour is actually integrating the tour services with the public transportation. And also, there are kind of one single entry point covering the all public services like 311, and also integrate the public transportation information like walkway or taxis or biking here. There Cliff mentioned about the smart work as well, so I won't go over with that. And there are kind of integrated facilities. So I'm just saying that there are more and more integration, creating the more value-added services for the cities. And this is kind of most of application currently is a kind of single service, but they are touring into the more generating the integrated services in the future. Next one is to collaborate. Based on these things, how app has been developed. There are very controversial results between the Seoul and San Francisco and Amsterdam. Whereas if you see the blue here, they're actually using the open data to creating the more apps in A sector here as well. So it's more 70%, but 81% are there. most of Korea was actually looking at the sea as a kind of contract or outsourcing development as well. So they are kind of adopt the different forms of partnership. Amsterdam set up the kind of special company like D here that try to promote their smart city as a special purpose company. And this model has been quite successful, and I believe that Songdo is doing the same approach as well to creating this special purpose company as well. And I think Busan is actually, which is the second largest city in Korea, is also actually promoting this special purpose company as well. This is more likely the Seoul was actually trying, financed by the central government, and also they are looking at the city, get a funding from the city itself. And also they are kind of based on the master plan to see the mostly outsourced to the private sector as well. San Francisco is a more likely very organic and decentralized, taking decentralized way, and limited the services diversity in terms of social and welfare at the moment as well. A more holistic approach may be required as well. I mentioned about the Amsterdam. Amsterdam is kind of hybrid between the Seoul and San Francisco. Intelligence and sustainability is also very important to actually bring the more value to the services. So for example, intelligence technology, we look at it, or all the services, Seoul actually has been putting quite a lot of efforts to actually trying out exploring a lot of different services. For example, like using the RF sensors in various applications like augmented reality or demand responsive pricing in San Francisco is a very good example to using the intelligent technologies to more looking at the demand and see how the price is changing according to their peak time as well. And so there are examples of the smart meter in the Amsterdam or also in San Francisco that they installed in the RF actually technology to hosting these things as well. Also the tour and Broadway in cultural information, they're using the augmented reality or GIS map to using it as well. So there is really a lot of patterns on using the advanced intelligent technology around here. Next one is sustainability services. So we found that Seoul, compared to the other two cities, is a lack of kind of approaching the sustainability services. We look at the Amsterdam or SF is the kind of giving a more providing the direct impact services, which means that you're actually engaging with the green kind of activity to using these services. For example, like urban eco map, both sides in Amsterdam and San Francisco, using it interactive map to actually citizens to know about what's going on about these carbon things in your neighborhood. Also the energy management at the Amsterdam is looking at the monitoring the energy consumption and see how it goes as well. Also the solar map or wind map is available in more likely in San Francisco. But as eco-mileage services for the Seoul is actually using these services to looking at the energy saving apps as well. But all these services are giving a direct impact, but didn't give you more kind of incentive system other than Seoul as well in eco-mileage services. So more likely, I think the more smart city growth, I think for the sustainability, they need actually more incentive systems to know about how actually it can be benefit and also giving you more direct impact to the people in living in the cities as well. Smart city integrations, one of them is very important is actually device. We look at all the services, how these devices, and looking at whether they have a multiple accessibility, which means that whether they have a different kind of device to access the same contents or same services. We found San Francisco is also leading on this area, looking at the multiple device platform, and followed by the Seoul and Amsterdam here as well. By looking at just only single device platform, that means that actually one services with one platform. San Francisco was a dominant of iPhone users compared to the other two cities. The other two cities, web-based browsers was actually the dominant platform for them as well. There are also other attempts to actually looking at the specific devices, like Amsterdam, to looking at trying out, exploring, to see, for example, like urban specific services, like when you go to some certain urban spaces, you can try with the digital media board or something tried. Those kind of devices are actually created in SMC and Amsterdam as well. we found that network infrastructure is very important to carry a lot of different services. And rather than doing the private sector, Seoul has got a 20 gigabps as the users of 50%. That means that there are actually potentially to growth more and more services, and they can carry actually more services like media, data, or whatever. Cliff mentioned about the 60% of the will be data is rather than verbal is more digital media. So that actually required more capacity for the city to actually carry those kind of services. San Francisco was 10 gigabps, currently using the underutilized. This is need to be confirmed by the city, but one of the interview actually was found that it seems that they are underutilized with this kind of fiber optics cable as well. Amsterdam was actually lower than we expected as well. So basically the network infrastructure is very important for the enabler to the becoming smart city as well. Last one is actually smart city governance. Actually, this is very, very important for the different cities approaching it. So we actually made a kind of a maturity model with a different kind of topics with a scaling 1 to 7 based on our experience and focus group interview. Based on this, actually we measure the smart city governance area. We look at it. And if you see actually the results show that Amsterdam was actually leading on this way, and then San Francisco was more likely taking a decentralized approach to actually promoting their kind of smart city as well. So leadership and strategy, that both Amsterdam and Seoul has got a strong smart leadership, and they're looking at the more comprehensive kind of strategy planning and have a launch in the very big plan for the like 5-year with the ambitions goals as well. They also have a dedicated organization and process looking at their Seoul also looking at the smart green city with more than like 10 to 15 people are involving the dedicated team, looking at the policy, looking at the infrastructures, and this team actually have got a very strong support from their mayor office as well. Amsterdam is actually taking a rather private and public partnership approach, looking at Amsterdam Smart City Foundation, and those has got a kind of a formal process to actually initiating their smart city projects as well. San Francisco recently actually have a dedicated organization, and I know that Chief Innovation Officer is recently appointed early this year and trying to promoting it. So they're actually on the way to actually doing this kind of dedicated organization support as well. Performance measurement Amsterdam was actually very clear about looking at the very certain of indicators and also looking at this kind of thing. But SMC was a kind of looking at a more broad way to looking at performance in the action at the moment, but it hasn't implemented yet. So looking at all these kind of issues, we found that there are kind of issues here as well. There's a question of kind of how many participatory services we need to develop, where we need to focus, whether open data platform strategy can be enabled to actually promoting the smart city, whether service innovation we need to explore more or exploiting more under the circumstances. Service integration is really required, and creating the values for them. Collaborative partnership is kind of looking at whether you are letting go as a decentralized market approach against where we have to go as a top-down control. Direct service implementation against the living lab approaches we found is different. And also it really depends on the technology level. For example, a smart meter is really installed here in San Francisco as a direct implementation, compared to Amsterdam is just doing the pilot testing, and so is Seoul as well. Intelligence technology is also looking at the sensors and data analytics, and creating the more value or new service innovation for the cities as well. Sustainability required to engage with more services with the people, but also to adjust their behavior, they really require the kind of incentive systems to sustain creating the eco-value network as well. Infrastructure is network effects, and service user adaptation is very important. So there are more high carry the city network as well as the multiple device. We created a more adoption for the using smart city services as well. Last is the governance factor, which is very, very important. and also the centralized holistic based view against the decentralized, they are taking different approach, which is better, or which is there are pros and cons on these issues. There are different kind of approach. To conclude that, I think that more there are innovating advanced civic engagement participatory services will emerge based on the current theme like crowdsourcing or open data or it become more cost effective as well. And also they're looking at the empowering user-driven innovation through the open data platform. More and more apps will be developed by the using the open data platform. And they will be diversifying and exploring different service domains as well. The converging integrating smart city infrastructure is very important to how actually promote how infrastructure can be integrated into with the services and what kind of service can be delivered through this kind of integrations. Defining smart city governance is also very important to looking at creating the vision and road mapping a complex smart city, whether it's decentralized or centralized, is critically important. This kind of integrated planning development or for the process will be very, very important for the smart city initiatives. Creating this ecosystem for innovation and entrepreneurship will also have a private-public partnership based on this strategy as well. So I can close my conclusion, and I would like to thanks to Professor Rohan and Professor Miller to actually continue my research at SPRIE. Thank you.
Cambiar vidas,
Change lives.
change organizations,
Change
दुनिया में बदलाव.
Change the world.